T2. I'll call the meeting to order. And Mr. Franciac, would you take the roll, please?
Mr. Carter.
Present.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Mr. Walters. Ms. Cleland McGrath. Ms. Moulton.
Here.
Mr. McDougall.
Here.
Ms. Hubick.
Here.
Thank you.
Would you all please join me in the pledge?
Mayor Miller,
Mr. McDougall.
I'd like to excuse Mr. Walters from this evening's meeting. Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. McDougall, second by Mr. Carter to excuse Mr. Walters. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Moulton.
I move to excuse Ms. Cleland McGrath from tonight's meeting.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Moulton, a second by Mr. Young to excuse Ms. Cleland McGrath from tonight's meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Announcements, and we're on to announcements and committee reports. Just one announcement from me. Commercial Avenue. It's always exciting when there's some work being done there, but WashDOT has a plan to do some work on Commercial Avenue. The plan is to do pavement repair, mill and fill from 34th Street to 12th Street. And this is supposed to be nightly work from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. starting tonight and lasting through Wednesday the 17th, but it could likely go longer because we heard they were going to start last night. So we're still trying to narrow it down when our WashDOT crew comes and helps us out. The crew will shift the westbound lane traffic to the center lane. Traffic impact should be minimal because it's pretty late at night when they're doing the work. And just a reminder, Commercial Avenue, for those of you who don't know, from the roundabout just south of 35th Street all the way to 12th Street is part of State Highway 20 as maintained by WashDOT. This maintenance, of course, is most welcome as the city continues to advocate to WashDOT as well as our state and federal partners for the full overlay. This is not going to happen over the next few days, but it's progress. So that's Commercial Avenue report. Okay, next up is Public Works Committee. Ms. Moulton, I think.
Yes, thank you. The Public Works Committee met at 5 p.m. today. It was Mr. Young and myself and Public Works staff, including our new Public Works Director, Henry Hash. And to follow up on your Commercial Avenue update, Mr. Hash has been learning more from the consultants about our options for the roundabout at 12th and Commercial that we've discussed in the past. First it was going to be small, then it was going to be larger, and so kind of getting the update on that and what our options are, basically because if there is property that needs to be acquired by the city, that's an issue because we don't have money in our budget for that. So more to follow on that. We also talked about source testing at the wastewater treatment plant. There is a contract modification that will come to City Council next week on the consent agenda. We already have a contract for about $30,000. The modification would add $13,000 for increased parameters that are required for testing. And there is a potential additional $13,000 if we need to do additional testing based on the testing that is coming up this week. So basically it's compliance testing that requires greater parameters that we're running up against. So that would bring the contract from about $30,000 to about, or a little more than that, to about $57,000. So look for that next week. We also talked about our ongoing water system plan update, and what we were presented with today was a statement about our duty to provide service as a municipality under the Washington Administrative Code. So there's language that came to the committee in draft form that basically mirrors the new requirement in the WAC. So we had a peek at that. Our last major update of the water system plan was around 2010. It was over 10 years ago. We've done some minor updates since then, but now as we've known, just an update that we're doing the full thing. So we'll hear more about this in the coming months and hope to adopt the new plan in the second half of 2023. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Economic Development Committee report.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Young.
thank you. The Economic Development Committee met on Tuesday of last week. It was Ms. Hubick, you, Mayor Miller, Mr. Miesemer, Ms. Cleland McGrath, and myself. And we discussed the mission of the Economic Development Committee, some draft language, but overall the goal of the committee's primary function is to figure out how we can further assist not only the businesses of Anacortes, but economic life in Anacortes such that we achieve those goals and milestones in a concentrated fashion that we're all after. Some of the ideas came up. It was a bit of a brainstorming session, but notably, Dakota Creek may be bidding on some additional work, so we have our fingers crossed for that. There was some ideas. Ms. Hubick brought forward any number of wonderful ideas that we're considering, not only that help businesses, but also at the same time create an incentive for businesses to be here. And another interesting topic that came up was the discussion of staffing and the challenges that all businesses are facing, not just here in Anacortes, but on staffing, and how we as a committee can best try to help that process to move forward. And there were some wonderful ideas to come out of that. Ultimately, one of the things that we agreed on is that our next meeting, which will be, I believe, September 6th, that we will also have John Sternlick, CEO of the Economic Development Alliance at our meeting. And so we can brainstorm together, look at several of the ideas that we have for assisting that staffing shortage and trying to figure out how we can help those businesses, because several of the challenges that businesses are having is just hard to find workers. And then even at that, some of the issues of addressing how do we open more on weekends, the additional businesses beyond restaurants, is there a way for us to help that? So all of that is just on the table. It's not one specific solution. What we're just simply doing as a committee is beginning to figure out how we can help that process and move it all forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. All right, any other announcements, committee reports that I may have missed? All right, we're on to item 3C. This is volunteer appreciation. And I'm going to let Ms. Shu introduce this one. Ms. Shu.
Excuse me, Mayor, Council, and members of the audience. Today, Mr. Wolfswinkel and I are pleased to present Martin Harris to you for consideration for recognition through the mayor and the city for his volunteer work. Mr. Harris moved to Anacortes in 2019, but he had decided in 1969 that Anacortes was where he was going to settle. So he has a PhD in zoology, but his career was in computer modeling and consulting on mainframe software, computer software. He spent 15 years traveling the world with his wife on their sailboat, and then in 2019 relocated to Anacortes to make this their final home. Soon after, he immediately began volunteering at the senior center. And while he was there, it was just before or maybe it was early 2020, just before the pandemic. He, at that point, really stepped in and provided such a critical service to seniors in our community in terms of helping them to understand how to stay connected, how to utilize their new equipment, phones, and computers to be able to stay connected in a very disconnected time. So that was in 2020. As the senior center reopened, then Martin became a volunteer. So he has regular hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the senior center, where it's just walk-in. People can come in and get technological help to be able to better learn how to use all of the resources. But he also has volunteers that he's helped to coordinate. So every day of the week, there's somebody there that can help with people's technology needs. In addition, he was becoming more interested when he transitioned off of living on his boat to finding out different ways that he could more easily determine how best to stream information. And he realized he really could personalize the way that he is getting his news, the TV shows, the different things. As a result of that, over the past year, Martin has hosted 6 classes at the Anacortes Senior Activity Center with over 300 participants coming in to learn how to cut the cord. If that's not enough in terms of having some impact, he also gives out his phone number and his email address, and he does house calls just as an unpaid consultant to be able to help people to really understand how to best utilize the technology offerings that are available at the city. So in addition to that, he serves as the curriculum director for the Anacortes Senior College. So Mr. Martin is not somebody who sits still and just is relaxing in his retirement. He's really making an impact. The Anacortes Anacortes Fiber Internet really views him as an extension of our team. He's this ad hoc member that is just providing these great resources to people, and he's able to give them more time than we might be able to do on an install to make sure that people are very, very comfortable and confident in their decision to cut the cord. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mayor Miller.
Thank you. And Martin, thanks so much for doing this. I always say that we cannot do all the great things we do in Anacortes without the help of volunteers, and certainly you've helped more than most. But the Anacortes Senior Center and Access Anacortes Fiber staff ask that I recognize Martin for his generous contributions of time, energy, and expertise. So tonight I'm pleased to recognize Martin Harris as Anacortes Volunteer Extraordinaire. Martin is a wonderful resource for our community, and the Access Anacortes Fiber team views him as an ad hoc member of the team. So thank you, Martin, for your tireless community service, your commitment to helping people cut the cord, and for your contributions to the mission of the Anacortes Senior Activity Center, also known as a place where seniors thrive. So I've got a little certificate for you, and maybe somebody will take a picture.
Everybody gets to hear it.
I just would like to thank the City of Anacortes for doing this project with the access. It means it's extremely important to the senior community as a whole, just for the improved communications, the improved access to healthcare. I mean, with telemedicine coming up, so it's really important, and they are very appreciative of what's going on. And I thank you, and I thank you for my just for having the opportunity to help you implement it. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again. Appreciate it. Okay, we're moving on to item number 4, public comment. This is your opportunity to address the City Council on any topic that's not on the agenda tonight. Any members of the public here wish to address the council? I'm checking to make sure no one signed up, and no participants online. Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda, item 5, A and B.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton.
I move to approve consent agenda items A and B, 5A and B.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Moulton, a second by Mr. Carter to approve consent agenda items A and B. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. On to item 6, other business. So Ms. Shu is back up to discuss Access Anacortes Fiber Internet update. So here's our fiber updates. Good lead in. But I didn't give you enough time to open things up. Okay, there we go.
Well, it's nice to be back in front of council to provide an update on Anacortes Access Fiber Internet. Sorry, I said that backwards. Anacortes Access Fiber Internet. We transitioned to quarterly meetings or presentations because I was giving you a lot of good news, but on a very frequent basis. So now we're doing this on a quarterly basis. So I'm glad to be here. And Mr. Lindberg is also here, so if there's questions that I can't answer, I'm happy to have his assistance here as well tonight. In regard to our customer count and revenue, what I'd like to point out is that as the end of business today, we have 1,503 customers in service, and it was just in January that we had hit our 1,000th customer. So that is a very nice trend in terms of the rate of installations that we're seeing, and that also translates into increased revenue. So we now have over $94,000 in monthly revenue as a result of our services. Then, as we look at our customer orders, we currently have 3,033 orders that have been placed, with half of them in service now. So we are making good headway, but there are a lot of customers who have put in orders that we're still getting to in terms of that installation. In terms of our build out, we have over 60% of the Anacortes premises covered with a service available to them. And we are very pleased that nearly 4 in 10 premises or customers, both residential and business customers, have signed up for our service. That is surpassing what our business plan expectations really needed to meet, which was a 35% take rate. In the areas that we do have service now, in the West End, we have a 42.1% take rate, and in the pilot area, we're up to 47.3% take rate. So this is a service that people are being very responsive to, and that is resulting in revenue to the city, and we're providing an important service. In regard to our cash flows, you'll notice that the first 2 columns are looking at Q1 and Q2, and then the third column is July. So the first thing that we'll look at is our revenue. And as you look at the first and second quarter revenue next to the operating expenses, we are operating in a negative cash flow. Or in the first quarter, we're operating at a negative cash flow. In the second quarter, we began operating at a positive cash flow. And so over those 3 months, we operated at $34,219 to the positive. In the month of July alone, our positive operating cash flow was $31,147. We're very pleased with this, as it is consistent with our business plan when we had projected that we would become operationally cash flow positive. This is separate from our construction expenses in terms of building that backbone and putting people into service, but it's a very good trend line that we are pleased with. The West End expansion has turned green. What that means is that it's considered to be our current service area. We are no longer looking at this at a street-by-street level. We have been able to have that construction complete. We currently have 456 customers in service, and we have over 500 that are still remaining for us to get into service. We are averaging 20 customers a week for installations, so that puts us out really until the end of the year with a steady flow of getting those installations complete. I say that because I'm really wanting to give a plug that anybody who's listening online, if you have received a phone call from our business coordinator trying to schedule that, please respond right away so that we can get you on that schedule. We are already booked out 3 weeks in advance and are really wanting to get people in service, and we're trying to do it in a methodical way. It makes a better sense for us to do multiple addresses on a street at a time so that we're not spending a lot of time moving, trying to go from location to location. This is our updated map as of today, showing a large portion of the city as a current service area. The purple area, Guaymas View, will begin construction in late September. And then we're moving forward with the EDA area, which is we have some funding through a federal grant, the Economic Development Administration. And so we're going through all of the requirements to meet the needs of the federal government to ensure that we have access to that grant funding. This is another way to look at our network expansion. As we've talked about in the West End, that we've passed 2,375 premises. That backbone construction is complete, and we're doing the installations now. The funding for that has been the Savvy Bank line of credit, the $4.5 million line of credit. We also have $660,000 through ARPA funding that's being allocated to help support that. The Guaymas View area, which is the area that is the next area that we're building out, that design is complete. We're finalizing the easements needed in that area. The conduit and both the small and the large vaults have been received, and we expect that the drop vaults will arrive mid-September. That is going to allow Summit X to begin that underground construction in late September. We will also be doing a separate intent to bid for our aerial construction late September, early October. And we imagine that the installations will begin in the first quarter of 2023 in that area. We did receive a $500,000 grant from Skagit County from the .09 sales tax funds. And we're utilizing fiber revenue and the balance to be funded through debt service, or debt moving forward. The EDA area will be the next area that we do the build out. That passes 1,815 premises. We're finalizing the easements on those private streets. And then after that is complete, then the design will be finalized. It's pretty much finalized, but we will need to have a PE sign off on that design because it is a federal project. We'll then be going out for an intent to build or to bid for the materials. We expect that to go out in October. And we also recognize that there will be some delay in getting those materials because there's been just a huge increase in the amount of broadband activity in build out that's causing some supply issues. Also following up, post COVID with the supply chain issues that are going on. So we are going to wait a bit of time after that construction, but once we have a sense of when those materials are all expected, then we'll go forward with the intent to bid for the construction portion. We have received a $2.25 million grant from the Economic Development Administration to offset the cost of this. And just last week, we applied for a Washington State Broadband Office matching grant for $563,000. That is for, they have money set aside for agencies that have been able to secure federal grants to help offset the costs associated with building out broadband. So we feel very positive about the potential outcome of that. We'll be utilizing some fiber revenue, and then the balance of the project will be funded through debt, and we're looking at and have a plan for different ways that we're going to be addressing that. Again, I just wanted to thank Martin Harris. He really is making an impact here in Anacortes. and certainly has made an intentional decision to be an Anacortes resident when he spent 50 years kind of from the time he made that decision to move here to actually arriving here. But he's really making an impact on our entire community and helping people to understand and be confident and comfortable with cutting the cord. So it's been a great partnership with Martin and with the Anacortes Senior Activity Center, and I'm really just so appreciative of their support. We would be remiss if we did not thank the city staff. We are building basically a new business within the city of Anacortes, but we have a really talented staff. And as we were going through the list, I'm sure that we missed somebody here. But so many departments are just giving us great expertise in helping us to ensure that we're meeting the goals of the Access Anacortes Fiber Internet, supporting the entire city. And we just are very appreciative of their support as we continue with the build out. I always have to do a plug that the city of Anacortes, and we really value that we have faster speeds, providing very reliable service that's locally run with really reasonable prices. That's our value proposition that we bring forward. But this is the money side of it, but it's really the people that make this happen. So it's really a team effort, and then everybody has been so important in this process. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and thanks for the opportunity to provide you an update on Access.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Mr. McDougall.
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to thank you and the entire team very much. The progress and just the numbers and both on the financial as well as the signups are just looking fantastic. So congratulations and thank you all. Also, just recognizing basically the state of the market and how lead times and construction times and everything, basically all the logistics involved in this project are massively complicated, and the team has done a really good job of just planning for and sort of dealing with those challenges. So I know that Mr. Limburg has been sourcing all sorts of equipment that is, at times it's 52 weeks out, but he's able to get it sooner via, some resourceful method that he has. So that's fantastic. Also wanted to mention that, congratulations on very nearly 40% signups. We also, the original business plan called for a 25%, 75% split of gigabit customers and 100 megabit customers. And we're actually more like 35% gigabit, 65, 100 megs. So that's another good piece of the revenue story as well. So congrats on that as well.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? And 1,500 customers. That's a good number too that we just went over. So, and also all the departments, I know Ms. Hsu already mentioned it, but it is an all-hands effort at the city. It's a major undertaking, and contributions from all the departments are making this happen. So appreciate that. Okay, anything else for this one? All right, thanks, Ms. Hsu. All right, we're on to item B. Ordinance 4029, hours and closures for parks and the Anacortes Community Forest Lands. It's discussion and possible action. And Mr. Lunsford, are you going to come up and talk about this one, or is it Ms. Swetnam? I wasn't sure, but I know council knows we talked about it last week. But I'll let Mr. Lunsford approach the podium.
Evening, Mayor, Council. I can. Ms. Swetnam is certainly able as well, but so we didn't receive any negative comments about this from the public the last time you discussed it. In fact, we didn't receive any comments. So we worked with Mr. Walters throughout the process, and I know that Chief Floyd did as well. And these are hours that we've been using for some time. So 20, 25 years these have been our hours in the parks. And we work closely with the police and try to make sure that they're enforced consistently for all our users to kind of keep the parks in the ACFL. The ACFL, what wasn't mentioned last time, is there are native residents in the ACFL that are not humans, and we try to give them a little downtime. So that's another reason we support this. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. If you do, here I am.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lunsford. I think we talked last week or the week before about the consistency and the accessibility, and I appreciate the part you brought up about our non-human residents. I think that's really important as well. So with all that in mind, I move to approve Ordinance 4029, setting hours for the Parks and Forest Lands.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Ms. Moulton, a second by Ms. Hubick to approve Ordinance 4029, setting the hours for the Parks and Forest Land. Mr. Franciac, would you take the vote, please?
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Ms. Moulton,
Yes.
Mr. McDougall,
Yes.
Ms. Hubick,
Yes.
Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much, and no further business before the council. I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks again.